Alright guys, today I have a pretty special video for you. I have this Savage Fox Model B. This is a 16 gauge that was passed down to me from my dad. I believe he picked it up at an antique shop, and he's kind of had it in pieces in a closet ever since. And he finally just said, "Here you go, son." So, really cool gun. Last night I reassembled all the receiver bits there, so it does click open perfectly. The bores are actually really clean, and I'll get you a close-up of that. All in all, I think it's going to be a really sweet piece. But there is some rust on the barrel in areas that needs cleaning. I have kind of soaked this last night in WD, so we're going to clean this gun up step by step. But the main thing is the stock, which I have right here in the vise. The stock has some cracks, if you could see that. The stock has some cracks that need some attention. A couple cracks. We'll take a closer look, and there's also a chip right up here at the top. All in all, everything's here. I'm not going to refinish anything. I'm just going to clean it up real good. I personally like the brown look of the receiver and how it sits right now. There's some oil on it. Like I said, I've been soaking it. The best way to get this stuff cleaned up. But let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at this stock, and hopefully I can show you guys some really quick, easy ways to do some repairs on your own stuff, and possibly even gain some side work over time. So let's get started. I apologize for the AC unit noise, but it'd get rather hot in here if I don't keep it running. We finally got some rain. It's been about a month, and the sun keeps poking out, and it just ramps up that humidity, and it's miserable. But anyway, here are the cracks I was talking about. And you can actually flex those open a bit. You always want to kind of do that to see how far down these cracks go, and I can see it actually kind of carries through. And believe it or not, this is a pretty straightforward fix. This gouge, that'll be a straightforward fix, and then there's another crack on this side that will actually most likely need some filling, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to take our Titebond here. This is Titebond 2, and this stuff is good for interior, exterior, and I prefer this stuff for any kind of gun stock repair work. The beauty of this stock in particular is we don't have any severe cracks in the wrist or any load-bearing areas. These kind of cracks right here, it's really it's not about structure as much as cosmetic, but over time, these things could split down further, so we want to go ahead and get those taken care of. So what I like to do is get my Titebond ready, and we'll go ahead and repair the crack that is the mildest. That one has the largest gap, so let's go ahead and do the mild one over here. You can see like that. So what I like to do is I've got some water sitting by. We're going to put some Titebond on this. Yeah, get some Titebond on there. All right. Next thing we want to do is we want to take some water, put some water drops on there. You don't want a whole bunch, but you do want to thin this down. And once you thin it down, it's going to get inside of that crack there We can start flexing it. See how it's starting to work in there. Really starting to work it in there. You can even tap it. Tapping works really well on thin parts. And you guys, I'm not just making this stuff up. I was trained by the best. All right, let's flex it again where you can see it. So that glue is really working in there. Add a little bit more water. All right. I'm actually not seeing any glue on the back side of that coming out, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It means I haven't worked it in there enough. I want that glue really getting worked in there like that. All right, we can see on the inside we're starting to get some squeeze out when we flex it. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna wipe off the excess. Wipe off the excess with a rag, just like that. And I wish I was more prepared. I don't have any paper towels, but paper towels are nice to have in this case. We got glue in there, see that? We got glue on the inside as well. We're gonna go ahead and get this taped up, and I prefer using blue painter's tape as it sticks well, but it doesn't stick hard enough to want to rip the finish up when you're taking it off. But in the case that it feels like it's a little bit too difficult, you can always use a heat gun on low with very gentle heat. Okay, so look, I'm pulling this tape down. I know there's a bit of a shadow, and see how the glue's squeezing out? That's what you want. Any tape residue will be cleaned up with hot water after the fact. So I really want to get some tension on this. Close that up. Yeah, I think this one's going to turn out just right. Let's go ahead and do one more. Nice and tight. Just like that. Now that thinned out glue is going to really soak into those wood pores and draw everything together as it dries. I know it looks a little silly now, but you guys will see the results when it's all said and done. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to move over to this side. This one's going to be a little bit more challenging. So the wood I'm using for the repair today is actually mahogany. but in my experience, black walnut and mahogany are very similar in grain structure. I mean, you can just see it there. You know, with this being what it is, if it was a restoration project, I would use exactly, you know, like a high dollar restoration project, I would use the material that's actually there. But today I'm just using what I have on hand, and it should turn out perfectly and nobody would really know. Even still, you know, I'm not really doing this for anybody, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our block and we're gonna make a good concentration of dust here. This is a pretty fine grit sandpaper. You can use a file, but I find that files leave larger shards of wood. Okay, so we have our dust here. I have a little bit of moisture there from my rag, but let's go ahead and we're gonna pile that together. Sometimes folding the paper, creating a bend for a channel for that powder to go through really helps keep it concentrated. Okay, so we're gonna got some wood chips over here. We're gonna use some Titebond. But one thing I want to check is on this repair, can my clamp actually clamp down? Because this crack is so much bigger, it's going to need a little bit more torque than the other one. Okay, and that does work nicely. Sometimes it's good to go ahead and do a dry run before you start gluing things up. I don't know if you can see that, but it actually pulled that in. I mean, it pulled that in. Nice. Look at that. So we might not need as much filler as I thought. But the clamping method, it's working. It looks great. And I think we're only going to need the one clamp. All right, so Titebond. Less is more when you're first starting out. You want to get as much of that powder in there as possible. Yeah, as you notice here, it's actually a big chunk there. As you notice, it really helps with the color of the glue, and this is acting as a filler. Titebond is a really decent filler in my opinion. I wouldn't do it for very large gaps. For very large gaps, you'd want to make an actual wooden wedge to slide in between and glue. So let's go ahead. Go ahead and get this worked in there. Sometimes using something to wedge it open, you can use a popsicle stick wedge, something like that. I've just got scraps up here, but you can see this. See how I'm squeezing it and I'm getting squeeze out? That's what you want. And we got Titebond on the inside there, squeezing out as well. All right, we are ready for our clamp. Clamp is on. See that squeeze out? That's what you want. Now would be a good time to just take a damp paper towel and wipe up some of that excess. I'm going to leave some more on this end where that gap was the heaviest. and that should turn out all right. I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and add a second clamp and see what that does. Kind of out towards the extension here, if I can get in there. It's hard to do this in film. I've got this tripod right in front of me, and of course it's like right in my way. Yeah, that looks good. So let me turn this around so you can see it a little better. Second clamp, just kind of getting the extension down there of the crack. I think it needed a little more oomph. So again, we're looking at the front. Let's scoot this back. We have excess in the front where the gap was the worst. And we're gonna leave that like it is. And now we're gonna move, let's see. Well, we can't move on, but we're gonna let that dry. Takes Titebond usually about an hour to set up. Oftentimes I just leave it for 2 hours just to be on the safe side. It says do not stress the joints for 24 hours. It says clamp for a minimum of 30 minutes. But yeah, I use 45 minutes to an hour and you're good to go, because I'm not going to be stressing these cracks. I'm going to come back and we'll repair this chip that's right on top. Alright guys, it's been 2 hours and I've let this glue set up, so we're going to go ahead and take the tape and clamps off and see what we got here. I'll probably try to start with the tape first. Just kind of get that peeled off. Again, we're dealing with on and off again rain, so forgive the noise. There you go. You can see it, it doesn't really pull any finish up with it, which I like, but let's see what it did. All right, that looks pretty good. I think that's going to clean up nicely. No movement, nice and solid. Yeah, it looks really good. Let's go ahead and take the clamps off the other side and see how that did. A little bit of glue on that one. Let's see. This one's still a little bit shiny because the glue was a little bit thicker, and you can see on the end how much that glue darkened, and that's kind of the idea. And I'll probably leave that till tomorrow for a dressing. I'll come back with a chisel and cut the excess glue off and maybe scrape this a little bit and see where we sit. But all in all, I'm pretty well pleased. There's a slight ledge here. I think a little scraping, that'll square that up nicely. And now we're gonna move on to fixing this chip on top. And we're just gonna use our piece of mahogany for that as well. And I think it'll be a great little fix. All right, I've decided to take my knife blade here and see if I can actually scrape this flush a little bit. Yeah, the idea behind this is to not remove too much color or finish. Actually seems to be doing better this way. Alright, I think that turned out pretty good. We'll do a little mild sanding. I've got some 220 here. And see if there's anything else we need to do to address it. check that out. I'll wet my finger a little bit. Yeah. Add back a little bit of color. You'll never even know that was there. I mean, because this has a dark grain running through it anyway. Real solid fix. We're actually here the following day. I had stuff I had to take care of, but here's the side. Here's where we left off. That was the side we sanded, and you can see how it looks pretty good. There may be some faint little gaps there, but I like almost the size of grain structure, so I'm not going to worry about that. I think we're pretty much sealed all the way through. This side looks really good as well. Again, another little gap, but let's clean it up, sand it up, and see how she looks. I'm just using a piece of 220. And this finish, I do believe, is like a linseed oil based finish. It's not a varnish, it's very thin, whatever it is. So instead of refinishing the stock, I'm just going to clean it up. I'm going to lightly steel wool it. I mean very lightly, to take off. It looks like there might be a film of wax on here. Just to take that off, and then I'm going to go over it with lighter fluid, which, you know, basically naphtha to clean off any residue or anything like that. And I'm going to add a few coats of linseed oil, and it'll actually darken the stock up some, or at least it should, because it does look a little bit washed out. But of course, you know, that's going to be in the next several steps. Move some of this here. All in all, so far, I'm pretty pleased. And you know, this gap in particular, because it was wider and kind of split away, you know, it may spring back open, I'm not sure, but if it does, we may just have to pare off the wood and add a new piece at some point, because, you know, this is a 16 gauge. It still has a pretty good amount of kick to it. And using the 220 here is going to prevent you from sanding too much and taking too much wood off. But man, this is actually looking really, really good. But you can see that. I mean, I love how using the mahogany dust, and again, if you know, you could use dust from, you know, another portion of this. Even if you needed to, you probably could take some dust off of the buttstock and a portion that would be underneath the butt plate. But like I said, I had the mahogany, so made some dust with that Titebond too, and I mean, look at that. It is filled, it's solid. Got to clean up the front there a bit. Just use my finger with moderate pressure here. And the thing I like about these spring clamps I used is they have just the right amount of tension, but they're not too overboard to where you squeeze out all the glue, where you glue starve the crack. So I mean, all this looks pretty good. Just a little bit of glue residual there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and sand the big gap side. And you can take heat or hot water and use a paper towel and wipe some of this Titebond residual off, but I need to sand these spots down anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But you know, if you got Titebond in other places on the stock, it comes right up if you're quick using hot water and a paper towel. And again, this is looking really good. I just placed the order for the parts for this. I need 2 buttstock screws. I need a trigger guard screw, and the main bolt that goes through the stock to connect the receiver. So that should be coming in the mail by the end of the week. Hopefully I can wrap this video up. And again, you know, the 220, it's really not hard enough to be hogging off a lot of material there. We're just kind of spot treating. We're pretty dang close. Just kind of scrape some of the wood away, see what we're dealing with. Very lightly here. I'm going in one direction forward. Let's see, actually might grab a little file here. I'm gonna grab my little file and just lightly kind of go over this spot. You know, this was that larger, springier crack. And again, you know, I'm not hogging any material, going very light. We're not trying to change the composition of the stock here. We're just trying to finesse. I'm going one direction, forward on the cut. I mean, that is looking really good. I'm just feeling there's kind of like a ledge there. And this is a super, super fine file. All right, we'll go back with some 220. All right, just to show you guys, it didn't set all the way like I had expected. There's a little bit of flex towards the front. The rear of the crack back here is solid, but the front still had some flex to it. So I thinned down some Titebond 2, put a little water on it, and actually sanded it with my 220, which made a little dust to help fill that crack. And that's exactly how I'm gonna leave it. At least for an hour. I feel like that'll set up really nice. So we'll come back in a little bit and we'll continue on. I think we can possibly even just start working on this side here. Man, I mean, that just looks fantastic. It really does. All right, got a brand new piece of 4/0 steel wool here, and we're just gonna rub this down gently. You guys can see, you know, how good that's really starting to look. This crack I feel great about, nice and secure. Once we put a little bit of stain on it and get some finish on that, you'll never know. Man, this rain is coming down. I love it. Love it. All right, guys, that looks and feels great. I think we're ready for the next step. We're gonna take a paper towel, kind of wipe away any dust or filings from the steel wool. Now I think we're ready for a little bit of stain. And I've got some, what is this? Three Rivers Archery, the black walnut stain. And I love this stuff. It does tend to have a little bit more red to it, so we're gonna be pretty careful in applying this. Let's just take a little bit right now. And you can see how red that is. We'll just rub it on a piece of paper to get a look at it. Yeah, I think that's gonna be perfect, actually. If you look at the stock compared to, you know, the actual finish that's there, that's a good match. Sorry guys, I'm fumbling with this fumbling with this setup. I'm not used to having a tripod, and I'm not used to having to work around a tripod, so just bear with me. All right, I've got a Q-tip with some of the stain on it. I'm just gonna gently swipe. Use my finger to blend it, just like that. Like I said, this is a little bit more red. But I think it's gonna work out. I mean, you can see how that's already coming around. And, I'm gonna hit it again with steel wool lightly. The linseed oil, I'm using GB Linspeed. This stuff already has yellows and reds in it, so it should really tone that down and look great. But you can see there in the refraction of the light, I mean, that looks really good. All right, next we're just gonna go over the whole thing here with our 4/0 steel wool. All right, guys, I'm gonna hit this again with our steel wool. We know that the spot that, or the crack that I just fixed, we took the finish down to bare wood, so we're just gonna seal that up. Man, that looks awesome. Just wait till finish gets on it. God, tell. All right. I really like Linspeed, Genspeed, good Lord. I really like Linspeed oil. I finished my 1861 Pieta Navy grips with it, or I should say refinished. All you do is just gonna give it a couple rolls. Open this stuff up if you can. Take a dab on your fingertip. We don't need a lot. A little goes a long way. And we're just sealing this one spot for now. So we're just gonna rub that on there. Yep. I'm gonna keep rubbing. Make sure it gets in there real good. And redoing the whole stock with this is gonna look phenomenal as well. And when I say redoing, I'm just gonna go over the finish that's already there. Like I said, good steel wool over the whole thing. Use lighter fluid or naphtha to wipe everything down. And Linspeed oil the whole thing, and it's just gonna look phenomenal. All right, so that's gonna dry. And you know, really the crack just looks like a bit of grain, a dark bit of grain. There's also things called graining pins. You could, you know, kind of add your faux grain underneath the finish, so to speak. But I'm honestly not worried about it with this gun. All wood kind of has different characteristics. Like you can see here, this dark line, that's natural in the wood. You know, how much different does that look compared to that? Not a whole lot different. All right, that Linspeed is working. It's getting on in there. And we're just gonna let that dry. Looks good though, doesn't it? All right guys, so I let it dry for a bit. And as you can see, you know, it's still a little too red. So we're just gonna take a Sharpie and kind of, you know, go over that whole area gently like this. And come kind of take our finger, sort of rub it in there. And y'all are gonna think I'm crazy. And usually these spots, or the area closest to the end here where the wood touches the metal, those are naturally gonna be the darkest from the oxidization of the wood. If I could talk. And yeah, we kind of want this to soak in. And what looks kind of ridiculous right now won't when you go back over it with steel wool. Just a little too red, and I don't have any other alcohol dye on me at the moment, but this should work great. So we still got our fresh piece of steel wool. Just going right back over that. Looking good. Looking good. See, it looks a little bit grungy, kind of like the original age and finish that's already here. And I see a few little touch-up spots right there, right there. I'm gonna get those. But you see what I'm saying, guys? Think outside the box. The Sharpie trick is definitely a good one. I think we got the red from that walnut stain, and now the Sharpie is giving us the brown to dark that we desperately needed here. And that looks really good. And we're gonna go right back over that. I mean, that looks perfect. I'm gonna go right back over that with some Linspeed. Just again, a little dab. And I don't know if I mentioned, but the GB lens speed, the only difference with this that I'm aware of and Linseed is you just have simply a quicker dry time. I'm just gonna wipe away any fuzzies or anything. Now let's go back over this and see how it looks now. Oh yeah, see the dark? Yep. That's what we needed right there. Boom. That Sharpie is what made the difference. Now we got the color. So we'll leave that on there and let that set up. Sometimes using the heat of your palm and just kind of rubbing it in there helps it set up quicker. And there you go. I think this side's done as far as stain. And we'll do a light steel wool over everything and continue on. Alright guys, I might be rushing this a little bit, but it's been a good while since I've had this clamp back on here. And looks like the glue has receded back into the crack, which means that it is most likely dry. So we're going to take this off and we're going to listen closely, make sure we don't hear it pop back open or anything. I don't think we will. That's still got the mildest little flex to it, and I think when that glue's done hardening we'll be in good shape. So I'm probably going to carry on with it. You can see there it's nice and filled, and because the inlet inside of here is unfinished, we should be good to go ahead and apply our finish to this side. As it will breathe okay, having that backside just natural wood. So I'm going to lightly sand, again 220, not being aggressive here. You know, we've already sanded it once before. That was just a reinforcing little glue there because it was a lot more spongy. That crack was still moving just a little bit up here. And once we take care of this, I think by the time we get the parts in the mail, we put it together, the stock will have sat long enough. Everything's going to be just fine. Still have a little bit of glue residue. All right, I think we're good to go. So we can take a paper towel here and get rid of some of that dust, and we'll come back with steel wool. Alright, so same thing, we're going to take our black walnut stain. We're just going to get some of that on here. I mean, you can see how red that is. Put a little bit under there. And come back with our paper towel. And the cool thing about finishing anything that's got age on it where it's already not perfect is you don't want your repair to necessarily look perfect. As in, you know, you don't want this spot to be super smooth and the rest is, you know, kind of boogered up, showing a lot of grain. Going right back over that with steel wool. Definitely doesn't look perfect. All right. I want to make sure I see this spot here. I want to make sure that's not glue, which I think it was. A little bit there too. Did it already dry up on me? Dang. Was it this one? Ah. Steel wool again. Nice and light, 4/0. Then we're gonna take our Magic Sharpie. I think I might go just a little bit more to get rid of some of that red. Of course, we want to add more dark again where the wood actually touched against the receiver. Caps back on before I forget. Steel wool. Let's see where we sit, guys. You know, definitely getting there. Still a little bit redder than the rest on the actual repair. So I'm gonna kind of bear down with the steel wool on the reddish bits. That's looking much better. All right. There's some glue residual. Just a damp paper towel. And that glue residual comes right up. Kind of smooth it out with some steel wool. Much better. All right, Sharpie time again. Everybody's favorite time. Get that sharp edge in here. This Sharpie's kind of on the way out. It is drying a little bit. I think that helps. Just gonna come up there. All right, here we go again. Steel wool. We should be pretty much where we want to be. Looking pretty good to me. I think by the time we slap the finish on there, it's gonna look awesome. And again, I'll wipe down any steel wool particles. Take our GB lens speed, just the smallest little dot on my finger, run it over that. It's definitely gonna need a little bit more touch up on this side, but I don't think it'll be much. Coming along very nice. Look at that. All right, guys, she's looking pretty good. I'm very pleased with that. I think once we get a few coats on there, she'll be looking even better. But what we're gonna do now is there's some paint kind of tucked in the grain in places, especially like right there. I'm taking a fine blade here. I'm going through the grooves, just kind of lifting out some of that paint because I don't really like it. And for the most part, it's just popping right out. And then we'll just burnish that back down, go over it with steel wool. We're already going to go over this stock lightly with steel wool before we add a whole coat of lens speed. Alright, now we can move on to this chip right here that's on the stock. And all we're going to do is just pare that down. A good chisel. Take our time here. Just pare it down till we get flesh. That's plenty. So we're going to chisel a piece off of this top piece to glue on here, to which we will shave to shape after it sets up overnight and dries. Alright, I'm not above just popping a wedge shaped piece off, so I might just do that with the chisel and maybe my mallet here. Yep, got our nice rough side right there. This is the side we're going to glue down. We should be in pretty good shape. Take a little bit of 220 and just run the piece across that, just to clean up anything. That looks good. So I realized that I got this started without even recording. Anyway, I got the piece fit, and I got some glue on there, a little bit of water, and I'm just kind of letting that tack up. I've got it situated. I do have a shelf here, so I stopped just a little bit above the shelf, just like this side has a shelf. And once that starts tacking up a bit, I'll go ahead and probably just tape it and let that sit overnight. Alright, that's finally starting to tack up a bit. I'm going to go ahead and apply even pressure. It's a tricky little spot. That actually feels really good. I can tell it's locked in there. I see the squeeze out. It didn't scooch. I don't know if I got this on video. I was talking to myself there for a while, but the piece that I glued on and the surface that I had chiseled away, I scored lightly with the grain with my knife, and that keeps the piece from scooching around on it. Go ahead and get a piece down here. Yeah, I think that's going to be lovely. We're going to do one more, and tomorrow will tell. I'm ready to call it a night anyway. All right, I'm getting in position with the tape, then pulling down. Kind of awkward, but it does work. All right, that's all set. We're gonna let the glue do the work, and we'll be back here tomorrow, and we'll be shaping that little wedge up, and we'll be coloring it with stain and putting finish on it in no time, and we'll be good to go. It is the following day, and we've got our little wedge patch on here that we used to replace that wood chip where the wood had chipped out. I do have the stock. I went over it with 4/0 steel wool just to clean up anything, and I'll be going over that with lighter fluid, and we'll be applying a coat of Lynn Speed today, hopefully. But first things first, let's remove the tape and see how our repair did. If I can even get to the tape. All right. And I've been doing a little more research on this, and this is a Utica, New York model, which means this is one of the earliest ones, so it's actually probably from more or less from the late 30s, early 40s. Which is even cooler to me, but and it kind of makes me glad that I've been taking the time to do things correctly and, you know, not refinish anything. The goal was to treat, the thing I've learned with firearms is you want to take these older guns and you know, even if the finish is half hanging off, it's like anything. You know, if you want to maintain value, you don't want to screw with them too much. And my goal here was just to solidify the cracks and pretty much do this in a way that nobody would ever really know. Now I'm checking this. Let me see if I can focus it for you guys. Checking this for any flecks. And I don't really see anything, so I think we can proceed. And our wedge here, our wedge looks pretty dang good. And the cool thing about about shaping this wedge is I've got the opposite side here to use as a reference as I'm shaping it. Now, if this was a larger repair and we needed to replace a large portion of the wood, not only would I use walnut or the actual stock material that it is, I would pay attention to the grain structure. And if I'm not mistaken, most grain on wood stocks would be almost like ladder stacked, if that helps anyone. I'm going to take my chisel here and start shaping, being very cautious and taking little bites at a time. And I want to pay attention to the grain of this little mahogany piece. Yeah, this chisel actually isn't the sharpest in the world, but we're going to roll with it. Yeah, see, that just wants to chip out, but that's still within what we need to do. So I'm going to come back the opposite side. Yep, this is the side, and I'm just paring little tiny bites, being very cautious here. I don't know if you guys can even see that. I might switch the camera. You know, with the chisel, you just want to take the bulk off, and we're probably going to come back with a file and kind of shape it to profile. You don't want to do the final bit with the chisel. Just taking a look here. Looks good. Being very careful not to hit any of the wood of the stock. I think we can bring that in now. You know, just as an added point of safety, put a piece of tape up and over our good side there, because we don't want to accidentally strike that with the file. We don't want to make any more work than we already have. You can see where the file's already starting to hit it. Really taking our time. I've still got the profile there that I'm mirroring this off of. Alright, so we got that pretty well blended there, and it's looking good. It's following the profile of the other side. And what I'm going to do is kind of clean up this front edge, and just to show you guys what I'm talking about. Right here, there's kind of an overhang. I just want to square that up with the existing stock. Another thing I wanted to mention is researching this model, my grip or the wrist area doesn't have any checkering. My foregrip does, and it could be that the foregrip came from another gun, or this stock came from another gun. But either way, I've got to be honest in saying that the stock itself, the quality of this walnut, judged by the finish and how the inlet looks, that stock is old. I mean really old. So I don't know if it's one. I read where they were pressing the checkering in, and I heard where they did it by hand as well, and maybe this one got passed up. I really don't know for sure, but I can tell you I've seen enough old guns, 160-year-old guns even. That's an old stock. I feel like it's most likely original. I could be wrong. Alright, so I drew a pencil line to mark the edge of the stock where it meets the receiver, and I've just been taking a small blade and scoring so I know how far to file down. And then we're going to take the receiver, press it against this, and make sure everything fits okay before we start to finish this. Alright, so we've got our end trued up in line with the stock there, and just to my eye it looks like this repair side is a little bit higher than the other back there when you roll it. So I'm going to peel off the tape and fit the receiver in here and see how it looks. Alright, I'm going to try to do this carefully and so you guys can see it. Let me flip it around the other way. And you can see what I'm saying here. This side's got the foregrip has the checker pattern, and the stock grip does not. So, I mean, I'm not gonna cry about it, but it's just peculiar. It makes you wonder. All right. You can see that looks pretty good. Kind of hard to tell, and in my opinion you probably want just a faint gap, because when this recoils you don't want that to chip back out. So I'll probably just clean that up a little bit more, and we should be good to go. I'm going to show you guys the fit again before we put the finish on. Just kind of get this in there. There we go. So you see that? That's what we wanted right there. So now we can go ahead and get this cleaned up and get finish on it. A little bit of 220 blend. And I have these edges slightly rounded. I didn't want them too sharp up against that receiver. The original on this side is sharper than this side, and I think that's part of the reason, maybe this side was a little bit longer but sharper, and that's probably a reason that chipped out to begin with. Definitely a recoil chip is how it looked to me, but we'll see when I'm done with mine if it doesn't pop right back out of there. Steel wool. I can feel the direction this likes to go, and because this is mahogany, it's going to be a little bit of a different color, so I might have to finesse it differently, but we'll see. That feels good. Let's go ahead and get our color out here. A little bit of a dip. This is going to be really interesting. Get that top edge. Bring it on in there just like that. We want to get that front side as well. And I'm going to come back with a paper towel and just wipe that. Man, looks good. Looks really good. Having trouble getting this thing to focus today. There we go. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and steel wool it again. And we'll come back with our color here. Wipe it right back on. Trying not to use my finger to wipe it because this stuff's hard to get off your hands when you get it on there. Alright, that's looking good, guys. I'll put this cap on. Steel wool again. There's no real set measurements here, it's just what's going to look good by eye. And like I said, you got a perfectly good other side to match it to, which helps. That looks really good. And because we got a good join where that wedge went on top of there, you're not really leaving any gaps for any of the darker Sharpie to get in there. Hopefully, that's the goal. And if it does, oh well. But we're gonna take it now. We're gonna do our famous Sharpie trick. Just kind of get that on there. I want it real dark on top near the edge here. I want it real dark around here. Like that. And then we can just blend this side in a little bit. Sorry, I'm trying to get this on camera for you guys. Blend that. Yep. All right, I am gonna call that good. What do you guys think? Get a little bit of finish on that. That's gonna look great. Tiny little bit of lens speed here. We're gonna go right over top of that. Seal that up nice before we move on to wiping down the stock. What chip? There was never a chip there. my finger because that body heat really likes to set that stuff up. There you have it. And then once this whole thing is blended, I mean, it's going to look awesome. And you can see how I mirrored this side. We got a lot of dark coming through here, almost, you know, at a point down here. And that's exactly what I did on that side. All right. Okay, we're going to take regular old lighter fluid. We're going to kind of soak this rag and go over this stock with it. We're going to stay away from the spots that that we've been touching up. But we just want to go over this whole thing. I'm just going to lightly kind of come down there. Okay. And this stuff dries pretty quick. I couldn't get all the paint out of those spots. I really didn't want to dig too much. So we're just gonna leave them. It looks right, you know. This gun has seen a lot. You know, look at all that dirt and grunge. That's what we're trying to remove before we put a coat of Lens Speed on here. Looking good. We're gonna let this dry for a little bit and then we'll put our coat of Lens Speed on. Look at that repair, guys, where that chip was. I mean, if you get it in the light just right, you can kind of see a shadow of it, but it still looks right. I mean, there's dings and stuff on this side. Our repair's over there. So a few coats of Lens Speed, we'll be good to go. All right, we're ready for our Lens Speed. We're just gonna do a little dab and get this party started. Really get that worked in. We're just gonna get it worked into the whole thing. Gonna get those edges a bit. It's perfectly fine to use your finger. And with this being kind of a preliminary coat, you want to go relatively thin with it. Kind of want to hit those edges right here some. This is really going to bring out that richness of the wood, where otherwise it's just kind of washed out looking. All right, there's our stock. One coat of Lens Speed. And we're just gonna let that sit probably till I get back home later this evening. All right, so I'm back in the shop from this morning to this evening, and that's what I like about Lens Speed. You can be relatively quick with it, but I mean, look at the richness that after cleaning this stock up and adding that Lens Speed, look at the richness of this stock and how it's really pulling it out. That's exactly what I was aiming for. It looks a lot less washed out. And what we're gonna do now is just rub very, very lightly with steel wool, and then we're just gonna add another coat of Lens Speed. All right, that's pretty much it. See how that dulled that up some? That's probably how we'll end up finishing it on our last coat. Just kind of go over it with steel wool, 4-aught steel wool. Took a lightly damp paper towel and just went over this to remove any specs of the steel wool. I got the Lin Speed here, and we're just going to get right back on it. Alright guys, well, I'm pretty much at a good stopping point. I do have some oil on my hands, but so I'm not going to touch any wood stuff that I'm finishing right now. I'm going to leave that stock overnight, and we'll come back, we'll add a coat hopefully in the morning, and then we'll add one more coat in the evening, let dry. Then the following day we'll just use some 4/0 steel wool and just lightly go over it to knock some of the shine off. The foregrip, I might end up doing some touch up to it. It looks a little bit rough. I might just leave it alone. I'm not sure yet. I did wipe it down. With some lighter fluid. I think all in all it looks pretty good, but there's just some kind of, finish bubbles that are probably a little hard to see. But man, this thing cleaned up great. It really did. That birchwood Casey I put on the barrel, look at that. Look at the blue. I mean, we'll be ready in no time. The parts should be here by week's end. Everything should be wrapped up, so we should be able to just assemble it and take her for a test run. I'm really looking forward to it. Seriously, I'm excited. I always say I'm excited, but I mean it. I'm really excited.